Welcome to the podcast, Jo.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's very exciting.
I am so excited that we connected. And again, this is new connections. This is what I love.
Yes.
I want to know, in this moment in time, what is the one thing that is lighting you up the most?
Lighting me up the most, oh gosh, it's a combination. One is to connect with amazing people, but the other is to actually make a difference and change people's lives, help them to change their lives. That's what really lights me up. Because I love to see people, especially women, I love to see them soar and succeed and just really shine in whatever they're doing. You know what I mean? There's nothing better than that. And I actually, selfishly, I think I get more out of it than they do, because I'm like, oh my God, I get all excited. And they're just like, okay, this is new. And I'm like, no, seriously, I'm authentically just thrilled for you. I love watching you transform, and I love to be able to help you do that. And that's really, in my mind, that's what being a human is about, is lifting others. You know, one of my favorite quotes is, we rise by lifting others. And I think that if we can get out of our own head, we can get out of our own ego, and we realize that there is no separation, that that's an illusion, and we're really in this together. And by supporting each other and lifting each other, then our life is so much more meaningful. It's so much more enjoyable. You know what I mean? And that's a priceless feeling. That's something you cannot fake. It's something you cannot feel poorly about. It's something you cannot take away. It's just this really high vibration, this really intense love that you realize that that's the truth. That's the truth of life, is just pure love and gratitude. So anyway, like going off here, but
so I know there's got to be a story behind how you came to this, because most of us on this planet don't just start by rising others. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Sure. I'm never that great. It's taken me a long time, in full disclosure, to really get comfortable talking about myself. And where that stems from is, so I have this insatiable curiosity, and I think that's very healthy. And it's served me well in the sense that I love to learn, and I'm always growing and learning and sharing that information. But when I was a child, I grew up with hippie parents who had a very alternative lifestyle. But unfortunately, there was some abuse and drug abuse there as well. And I was pretty much raised as an only child, because my half siblings were out of the house by the time I was 8. So I really got to see like the decline of my parents. But what was great about my siblings and my parents doing all the stuff they did is I learned from their mistakes. And one of the biggest takeaways growing up, I was always told, like, you don't matter. You shouldn't be seen or heard. You're just a child, blah, 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 and all this other stuff around that. And I realized that that's the worst thing you can ever say to somebody. That's the worst thing that you can tell somebody, is convince them that they don't matter, because that's not true. So I innately just was really supportive of my friends growing up. I was always like, especially when it came to the underdog, like, I want to, like, yay, I'm going to cheer you on. I'm going to be front row and center of like whatever's going on for you, because I think you're so awesome, and wanted people to see the value in themselves. But it took me a long time to really get to honor that for myself. Because when you're a child, those things that are in your subconscious, that little thorn, it just festers for a long time, and it takes work. But there's, you know, whatever's done can actually be undone, if that makes sense.
It does.
So
I can't wait to know how to do all the undoing, but it does make sense to me. So you've obviously gone through the journey of undoing some of this, and you've made some transition, because now you're helping others rise too. What was like that first point of like, I can't do this anymore, I need to undo?
Whoa, the first one, I don't know if there's a first one, but there's many moments. And I think that those were just building blocks to where I got to the point, you know, some people call it the line in the sand. Some people are just the breaking point, but darkest point, whatever. Honestly, I would say I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s. And I was homeless, living in my car. It was a short amount of time, but it was still like very scary. And I was living on the beach, and I was in California. And before that, I lived in Seattle. I had a pretty prominent job in a engineering firm. And then the crash happened of the economy. And it didn't really hit me until my position was eliminated. And it was about 3 years in. And then I moved to California, and it was like taking this huge pay cut because of the taxes and everything. And so I plowed through my savings really quickly. And then I would go and apply for a job, and there was like 500 applicants for the same job. But the difference was they had several degrees, they spoke several languages. And I'm like, it really started to play into me, like, what value do I have to add? So I started settling and taking these jobs that were like way below what I was qualified for, right? And when I couldn't pay my rent and I couldn't pay my bills because I literally didn't have any more savings and I couldn't get a job, I sat there on the beach and I was thinking, I'm like, this is happening for a reason. I'm not going to make this mean the end of the world. I'm not going to make it mean that I'm bad, that something's wrong with me. It's happening for a reason. And just, there was this shift. It was almost like I had an out of body experience. And I thought to myself, so if this is happening, and it's happening for a reason, and all the other things in my life that have happened that have not been pleasant, I don't have a crummy life. It's not a bad life. It's how I deal with what's been handed to me. And what really clicked was, oh, these are gifts. These are lessons. And these lessons are gifts. And that mentality shifted everything for me. And I thought, well, if something keeps repeating in my life, I'm the common denominator. So I need to figure out, how can I be effective in changing that for myself rather than being a victim, right? Which so many of us have, and we don't realize that we're stuck in victim mode. Because the truth of the matter is, what I learned is we truly are the creator of our mental health, our emotional health, and our physical health. That said, we are the creator of our absolute life. Yes, there was a creator of some sort that, bore us into this earth, but in our life as humans, it's like a game. We can do whatever we want. We are a player in this game. So let's play with the simulation and see what we can do to change our life. And it really boils down to your mentality. I don't know if that answered your question.
It did. But now we have all the follow-up questions, because I'm a questioner. I love questioning. Okay. So when you started taking on this mentality, I'm trying to get from like that moment to like where you are now, supporting others through those pivotal moments.
Ooh, like, well, yeah.
I want to know the things. I love the things.
The things honestly, I still had my library card. So I went into the library of that small town that I was living in California, and I started looking up self-development. And I'll say self and personal development over self-help, because there's a different vibration to those, right? And so I started reading, okay, who are people that I admire in my life, and what have they done, and how did they get there? I want to know their secrets. So it started by reading about those individuals. The first one was Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, right? Honestly, I was like, somebody handed that book to me at one point, and I'm like, it was like a big eye roll, like, what is this dude gonna teach me that I don't know? And this whole like mentality. And then I was like, oh, he's onto something. Yeah. And then it led me to all kinds of things. Like I read Gabby Bernstein. I read Hidden Messages in Water, which a lot of people probably don't know. It's Masaru Emoto wrote that book. And literally this book really shifted things for me. And you can read it in a weekend. Hidden Messages in Water. Way before the technology even existed, this gentleman figured out a way to take a picture of water. And the experiment was talk negatively, take 2 jars of water, talk negatively to this one, talk positively to this one, and take pictures of it at different entities or different components of time. And he also, not just through it being water, but he also froze it and was able to take pictures of it frozen. And what he found out is it's about frequency and intention. And the negative, he also did it with plants. And so like, but water goes into the plant. So ultimately it's still water, right? So whatever was negative had dark, decay, like just really heavy stuff. And the water was dead basically. And then if the plant was in the water, then it died. And everything that was spoken to positively and with love, the shapes were bright and they were beautiful, and it was just a higher vibration and it was flourishing. Same with the plant. That to me was the ultimate evidence of it really is about intention, and it really is what you put out there. Like if I really want to change my life, then it's up to me. I can get stuck in my mental stuff, which I had been for years. So I'm like, you know, how's that working out? Obviously not very good. Let's try something different. And that book, I was just so blown away. I literally read it twice in the same weekend. And I was like, okay, well then it's going to start small. So then if I'm feeling crummy about myself, then you know what? I'm by the beach. So I might as well just take a walk or sit on the beach. So I just started taking all those negative ions in, which are positive for your body. Take a walk. And I would say daily affirmations to myself. And I would be like, instead of saying, I'm going to try, I kept saying, I am, the 2 most powerful words in the universe. I am. And then I also read this other book called Mutant Message from Down Under. Also a weekend read, very easy. It's amazing. It's about this woman who happens to be American. She's a retired doctor from the Midwest, and she was flown to, I believe, either Melbourne or Sydney for this award. And when someone goes to pick her up for the award, it turns out it's Aboriginal fella, and he takes her out to meet with this tribe, and they go on to a walkabout, and she's supposed to, but meanwhile the real person was supposed to pick her up, and it was this other people that, you know, found about what she was doing. They're like, for 3 months she was like missing because she didn't show up for this. They burned her clothes, her like passport, everything, and she went on a walkabout with these people and learned about their culture and their mentality. And it was the same thing. It was about energy and positive and negative, and it was just, those books changed my life in that like pivotal beach moment, if you will. And the reason I'm sharing that is because all it took was a thought and then an action to that thought. Okay, well, if this is a thought I'm having, I don't have any resources, or so I thought, right? Oh, I'm living in my car. I don't have any money. What can I do? I have a library card. Oh, I can go to library. It's free. I'll check these books out. And I read them, and it just started shifting things. So no matter how destitute and dire we think we have it, there's always somebody who has it worse. So stop feeling sorry for yourself. Like, own it for a minute and then let it go, and then take action. So the next part was, okay, I thought I wasn't being resourceful, but truly I had all these resources. I had knowledge, this information. So the next part was to take action. And once I like started the walking and the affirmations and the reading, I started meeting interesting people who were connected. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And instead of saying no, I kept saying yes to the opportunities. Unless I had like a visceral reaction, I was like, whoa, I don't think so. You know, always listen to that. But that's, I mean, I hope that answers your question, but that's really what started the whole thing.
And now how are you using that in your life every day?
How I'm using that now? Oh gosh. So 6 months, I mean, a year and a half ago, I hired a coach because I was like, okay, I went from all these different careers. And I mean, I did everything from, I was a barista, I was in sales, I was a wine educator, I worked for a tower engineering group. I did a lot of different things, and they were interesting. I would go in and I would master it, but they didn't fulfill my soul. And one thing I've always been told is you give great advice, you have good insight, and you've been through a lot of stuff. People would relate to that because you've been there, you've done that, so you can kind of lead the way. And I've always been a natural like leader as far as thinking and habits. So I took it upon myself and was like, well, I need to be stretched. I need to do something I've never done before. I'm just going to like hire someone to kind of like help kick my own ass, right? Because you can only kick your own ass so much, but sometimes you need somebody to like help you be accountable. And so I went through kind of like 3 of them as far as like interview process. And what I learned is one I went through and I was like, oh my God, I actually know more about the subject than this person. And it was a group environment and it was a short amount of time. It was probably like a month. And that coach hated me because his ego was really bruised. He was like, oh my God, this little smarty pants, she knows everything. I'm like, I just happen to innately already know this information and you're not teaching me anything I don't know. Someone asked you a question and you don't even know the answer to it and you're calling yourself the expert. You might want to rethink that. Like, just because someone considers them an expert, guess what? They started out a novice somewhere. And it wasn't that I was trying to call this person out and make him feel bad. It was just like, hey, what about this? And hey, what about this? Because there's a difference between I'm an expert and blah, 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 but I only know this much. Whereas, look, I don't know it all, but I've been there. I'm open-minded. Tell me your side of the story. You just might convince me if you have something of, you know, a nugget to share. And do you understand what I mean? Like, yeah. So it went from that coach to another coach where I was like so stressed out and would like sweat and have anxiety just at the thought before I would even prepare to have a conversation with this person. And I'm like, you know what, girl, this is not the person for you. And what I realized is that was a lesson for me because that person came up as a boundary issue. And once I set the boundary, it was another 3 months before that person finally let me alone. And I had to like stay firm in my boundary. It was really interesting. And then the third person, I was kind of like, let's have a conversation. It was great. And then we prepared to chat a week later. And then literally we're on the phone and like the phone drops the call. I tried to call her back. She tried to call me back. Nothing would happen. Like nothing would go through. And it was a brand new phone. And she had a brand new, like all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, these are signs from the universe. And I'm listening and paying attention. I had to learn all 3 of those before I realized I really needed to trust myself. And a lot of the stuff is in myself. And as it is for everyone, by the way. And then I said, you know what, universe, give me the right person. The right person came along and we've, you know, butted heads a few times, but I think that that's good because I think that as long as there's like a synergy that feels good in the connection with your coach, but you still disagree because they're challenging you, but they ask you the right questions so that you find the answers and you push through yourself. That's the whole point of a coach. It's not to hold your hand and I'm going to tell you what to do. If that's the kind of coach that you're seeking, I'm not that person. But also, do you really want that? I mean, we are conditioned from the time that we are born. Our name's chosen for us. Oftentimes, like our beliefs and our culture, that whole thing is shifted into us. Our friends, our family, our culture, our society conditions us as a human being. And we spend our whole life trying to uncondition and figure out who the heck we are and what we contribute to the world and how we really walk. And also, like, do we like ourselves? And is that really what we want to be? And how do we figure that out? So I know I'm going off on a tangent. I think
it's a great tangent. Keep going.
But my point is like just the level of self-accountability and really questioning everything will always serve you. And I actually saw an interview with, let's see if I get her name right. Bazama, I didn't get it. Gunu, I believe is her last name. I'm totally butchering it. Long story short, she's this amazing, beautiful woman. She's so powerful and just wise. And she is the marketing master for Netflix. And she like has worked for Apple and a million other companies. But what she shared today in the interview that I saw was someone's like, what you define like being a badass. What does that mean? And she said, it is owning absolutely all of who you are and being in control of that, flaws and all. And what I mean by control is being the master of your emotions, knowing that it's not personal, knowing that others have their story and they're seeing you, and everything they do in their life is through a filter, and that it has nothing to do with you. But if you can get outside of that and try to interact with people from that point, then you're a badass. And I was just like, oh, that's my girl. I love that. You know, like the self-accountability. And then the other part that she talked about also happens to be intense curiosity. Those are two things that I've always valued in my life. And from like a little tyke, I don't know where that came from, but I'm grateful and they've served me well. And I hope that anyone listening to this resonates with that and really just starts to take that. Because if we're waiting for someone else to give us the answer, or we're waiting for permission, why? What are you waiting for? You don't need somebody else's permission. Live your life. Go do it yourself. Figure out a way. I have this neighbor, very sweet gal, but she is like one of the neediest people I've ever met. And I say that with love, but there are days where I'm like, girl, Google it, figure it out. Like, stop asking me. And she's like, well, how did you figure it out? I'm like, I just did it. And I either made a mistake or I Googled it or I looked it up. I figured it out. And she was like, oh, and this woman's like, you know, she's a little bit older than I am. And I'm just like, how do you get by in life if you're waiting for permission from everyone else? It's not bad or wrong. Believe me, there's no judgment. I get it. I have been there too. But my point is, she was like waiting for someone to like hand her the information, or waiting for a sign, or waiting. Just stop waiting. Take action. Figure it out. You know what I mean?
Take action.
Yeah. Take action. Just figure it out.
I love that you're approaching everything with curiosity. I think for me, I know that was one of the hard things for me, because as a kid, what do we do? Why?
Yeah.
Until your parents are like, if you say why one more time, I am going to wring your neck. Like, stop asking why. But it's really that curiosity that's moving us forward.
Yeah.
And I think that you brought up another important point, is that like, think about what you want for a coach. Like, I want to go back to that, because you went on this great tangent and had all the questions. But when you're working with a coach, we might know more than you. We might know less than you.
Sure.
But you're learning something, you're moving forward. Mm-hmm. You're getting triggered in some way to make some sort of a change to get back into self. And I think that was so important of something. I just wanted to say it again, because that was so important of something that you just said. But I want to like hit it at home, drop that mic, like, get curious.
Yeah.
Who are you? Is this you that's living this? Are you doing someone else's strategy? Are you like, so important to trust in self.
Absolutely. And I had to go through that for several reasons. I mean, there's a couple, I think, important lessons there. And one was trusting myself above all. Two was, why am I seeking a coach? And why am I seeking that coach? And what I realized is, just because they're interviewing me, I have the same right to interview them. Why should I choose them? And I'll tell you what, most of them were shocked when I asked the question, because they hadn't been asked. We give so much blind faith. We give blind faith to the government, to doctors, to churches. And I get that, right? And I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers by saying that. We're told what to do. We're told in the parking lot. We're told which way to go and to park between these lines. Why? Okay, because somebody else said so and then we agreed. Okay, great, that's fine. But if I'm triggering you, it's because I'm causing you to think, and that's a good thing. So love me or hate me, that's fine. But anyway, so one of the things, so I want to go back to that, because that's a good point, is one, I learned to trust myself. Two, I learned to question. And three, I learned to really get present and check in. Okay, this one didn't work, but I learned something from it. This one didn't learn, but I learned something from it. This one didn't work, but I learned from it. This one, it works, and I'm learning from it. And I'm so much more I'm learning from it that I don't even know right now. But some of those didn't feel good while I was going through it, but I still questioned in myself, what's going on here? Why am I feeling triggered? Why am I feeling upset? Why am I feeling this or that? Is it because I didn't listen to myself, or is it because I let someone else treat me some way or define me, or what's going on? Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't check in with ourselves enough. We don't ask ourselves those questions enough. And I think as society continues to awaken, what's happening is there's this beautiful compassion and this exploration and this curiosity and this love, not just for ourselves, but it's permeating out into everyone that we interact with. And it's starting to loosen the crusty crusties on everyone that's been there for the last year and a half, you know.
Oh, the crusties. I love that. So now that you've stepped into this new version of you, I know that you're serving others. Can you tell me how you're serving others? Like, sure. How are you bringing this to continue your ripple or tsunami, whatever you call it?
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I'm like so excited. There's all these ideas in my head all at the same time. So I have to like pick one, calm down. So I have been coaching for a bit, and what that looked like before was I was more on the energetic healing side. So, which is quantum. I mean, it's physics, right? So everything is energy, and there's only 4.6%. I have a point, so just bear with me. 4.6% of the world's mass is hard mass. Everything else is energetic vibration. All this stuff is an illusion, right? So that's why humans are so sensitive to sound, why we're so like that person gives me a bad vibe. That's energy, right? We don't see it as energy because again, the conditioning. So I was really fascinated. I went through a time where I had a partner who had terminal cancer, and we were best friends in high school. We kind of lost touch, and then we got back together, and I was like, I don't know, dude, love you, mean it. You're kind of a hot mess. And he's like, well, I'm sick. I'm like, okay, I didn't have to, but I said, you're not going through this alone. He's my friend. I care about him. So, I saw him through that, but I did it alone. I didn't have a support system, and he was an only child, and both of his parents were deceased. So he didn't have much, and I don't have those family resources myself. So I was like, well, we're kind of in this together, What I learned is energy is everything. And it goes back to that. You remember the book I read, The Water of, the Intent? And I started thinking about that. And then after he passed, I was in it. The grief was intense. It was real. And it was really discombobulating. And then I had a session with a healer, a Reiki healer, and I hadn't had one since I was really little. So it'd been a while, and it changed everything for me. And I was like, this is really what I want to do. And then I went into that, and I mastered that. And I did that for years. I got mastery level, taught people. And I realized that it was keeping me small. I wanted to do something so much bigger, because it's not just energy that needs to heal. It's your mind that needs to heal, because your subconscious is so super powerful, and yet we ignore it so much. And it energetically is the cause of a lot of our health issues and our freedoms, or the prisons, if you will, that we make for ourselves, right? So then it just catapulted me into learning everything I could about, I studied NLP and masteries, and then hypnosis, which is, let's just be clear, I got a bone to pick with Hollywood on that. Hypnosis is not what you see on TV or the movies. That is so not even true. It's not. It's as simple as, hey, let's calm ourselves, relax, meditate, and I'm going to consciously ask you if I can talk to your subconscious. Is that okay with you? Sure. And then you start, right? That's it. It's that's the nutshell version, but I just had to point that out for a minute. Yeah. Because people have you say words and they're like, oh, because everyone thinks what they see on TV and movies is real, and it's not. So long story short, that's what brought me, but working with quantum changed everything for me, because this is where we are on Earth right now. This is 3-dimensional, and there's so many other dimensions we don't even know about and recognize. So I found this coach, and we started working together, and I was able to work with other dimensions and leave a lot of 3D behind. And so my goal and my mission in life is to help people transition from 3D to the 4D bridge so that they can change their life and get the freedoms that they need. So it's a combination, but who I work with is very specific. I don't work with everyone. There's an application process. And so during our conversation, I asked for permission. Can we talk to like your star family, your galactic family? And can we talk to your soul family? And whatever comes through, that is a conversation that's going to shift and change them for the better, regardless if we work together, because there's no judgment. It's not about selling, it's about service. Do you know what I mean? And so no matter what, I want every conversation I have with people to be one that is of love. And it could be 2 seconds. It could be the person at the grocery store. It could be whoever I'm buying like shoes from, or whatever the situation is. Even my pets, my cats, they are my companions. I love them dearly. There's a big difference when I'm like, hey, and I raise my voice and I'm like Krabby Appleton with them versus like, hey guys, what's going on? And I get at their level and I talk to them, you know, and because animals understand intent and love, right? That's why their life is so short, is to teach us all these really pure messages and lessons in life. But we as humans overcomplicate things. So I know there's a whole nother tangent I just went off on, and it was a long-winded story, but I think I recapped it there, maybe a little bit. It's about intent.
So if someone were to find you and to try to get into your space so that you guys can connect, where's the best place that people can interact with you?
They can interact with me at my website, which is jobradfordinternational.com, or they can look me up on Facebook, Jo Bradford International, and they can DM me or contact me through the website. So, yeah. Or I do have a podcast, but so just so you know, it just started it probably has like a few episodes that you can binge, but it's Jo Bradford International, and it's on Spotify and Anchor. And my website is still under construction with some things, so bear with me. I'm doing it all myself, man. Teaching myself.
But you did the thing, and that's what matters.
Yeah, took action.
Yes. And it's a podcast, so lights my heart up just hearing people say, I started this. I'm like, good.